So let's now see which tests I would write for this. For this, I'm first of all going to add a new numbers.test.js file, which will hold these tests. And then in there, I will import from vtest, and I will import it and expect. I will also import from the numbers file here, and I will import this transform to number function, which I want to test. So the unit I want to test. And then here we can add it and describe the first thing we want to test. And here, for me at least, I like to start with testing the main thing a function should do. So here I will say it should transform a string number to a number of type number. So I want to be able to pass a string that contains a number into transform to number, and I want to get back a number that's of type number. So first, the arrangement. I will arrange the setup for this test by adding an input const, which contains the number 1 as a string. So the quotes matter here. Then we act by calling transform to number, and we pass the input to it. Now what we get back is a result, and of course these names of these constants and variables are up to you, just in case it shouldn't be clear. And now I expect result to be what? Well, I do expect it to be 1, or I manually transform input like this. But we could also say that it should be to be type of. And in this case, I want it to be type of number. Now it's up to you which approach you prefer, but that is what I will check for here. And with that, if I now run npm test, all my tests pass, and you now see that here we got a new file with new tests, and you see that all the tests, at the moment there only is one, passed. So that worked. What else could we test here? Well, I would say that it should yield not a number for non-transformable values. So here I do values, arrange some value, like let's say invalid, which is a string which can't be converted to a number. 1 as a string can be converted, invalid can't be, because which number would that be? And then again, I'll get my result here by calling transform to number, and I'll pass in the input. And then we can expect result to be not a number like this. Maybe you also expect transform to number to throw an error if a non-transformable value was passed in. You could of course have that expectation as well. You would have to change the code in here, but you could do that. Maybe you write a test, and whilst writing the test, you see that the function currently doesn't work the way you want it to work. Again, that is the idea behind tests. You want to improve your code in the end. You want to make sure that your functions do what they should do. But here my expectation is that I don't get an error, that I simply get a not a number value. So that's the test I wrote. And with that, I can again run npm test, and my tests all pass. So these are the 2 tests I wrote here. Are there more tests you could write? Certainly. As mentioned, you will always be able to come up with more tests. It also depends on what you expect and which behavior you want. Definitely feel free to share your tests with your fellow students. But this is my solution here because I want to keep it simple for this simple function. But again, if you added more tests, if you have more scenarios you want to test, that's great. That might make a lot of sense. You just don't want to test for really weird things that don't really make a lot of sense, of course. You also don't want to perform the same test twice, just named differently. I mean, I could add the same test again here, and now just use 2 as an input. This wouldn't make sense. It's an extra test that doesn't add any extra value. So you don't want to do that. But besides that, you can of course add more tests.